Hello, and welcome to our conversation with current Mercy volunteers. We have a wonderful crew today that are serving throughout the US in different placements, including healthcare, education, and social services. But I will allow them to introduce themselves. Minji, if you'd like to start, tell us who you are, where you're from, and where you're serving.
Hi, I'm Minji. I'm from River Edge, New Jersey. I went to school at Villanova University in Philadelphia, and I'm currently serving in Savannah, Georgia at a free health clinic called St. Mary's Health Center, and I'm serving there as a medical assistant.
Thanks, Minji. Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I am currently serving at Detroit Cristo Rey High School in Detroit, Michigan. And I'm working in the campus ministry office. I'm mentoring for 2 U.S. history classes, and I actually am getting to teach some of the junior theology courses too.
Very cool. Thanks, Lauren. Michaela?
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela. I'm from Rochester, New York, and I am serving at the Nationality Service Center in Philadelphia. So I'm the Food Access Liaison at NSC, which is a service center for the immigrant and refugee community of Philadelphia.
Yay, thanks, Michaela. Well, so grateful to have each of you here tonight to share your experience and stories. For those of you watching, feel free to chat us your questions. These Mercy volunteers are ready to answer. So let's start at the beginning. What was your discernment process like in coming to Mercy Volunteer Corps? How did you end up here? Lauren?
So in my last year of college, I knew that I wanted to do a year of service. I had older friends that had done a year of service who graduated before me, and I just loved listening to their stories and the experiences that they were having. So I applied to a few different programs, and throughout my process of applying with Mercy, in the application process, my interview process, I was just I don't know how to describe it, but it was just like a great experience where I felt welcomed as a person. I felt seen as a person. I wasn't just another number that was applying. Everybody was so hospitable, so willing to answer your questions. And I just remember receiving a phone call from Marie, who was just like the cutest human being ever. And in my interview with the principal at Cristo Rey, it was just like a natural conversation to have with him. And I got off the phone for my interview and I was just like, hey, wow, this is where I want to go. Like I immediately emailed Marie and I was like, hey, I'm really feeling confident about going to Detroit. I absolutely am so ready to start this journey. And Marie emailed me back and goes, hey, Kevin literally just said the same thing about you. So it was just like a really cool process of just kind of seeing my path just laid out before me. And it all just felt so natural that it felt like it was the right thing to do at the time. It still is, obviously, but.
Amazing. Thank you, Lauren. Michaela, how about you?
Yeah, actually very similar to Lauren. When I graduated, well, especially over COVID, kind of leading up to my graduation, I determined that I did want to do a year of service, but I, similarly to Lauren, applied to a few different programs, some kind of with like a religious quote unquote affiliation and others like more secular. And once I got a little bit more into the application process with MVC, I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. Like, I hope I get in. Because I felt that same, I guess, just warmth and like community, even over Zoom interviews. I think I remember I had like the alumni interview where a past MVC volunteer kind of chats with you, and I was so nervous and like uptight. I was like, oh my gosh, it's an interview. And it was so like, it was more of a conversation, and she shared her experiences, and it just made me really excited to, I don't know, do MVC and have similar experiences as she did. And I don't know. I just similarly to Lauren, I remember the phone call with Marie. Like I was at home in Rochester and she was on the phone. And I was like, oh, like she's so nice. She's so kind. And it turned out everyone in NBC was like that. So that was my process.
Great. Thank you, Michaela. Minji?
For me, after I or I guess like while I was graduating, and kind of trying to decide what I wanted to do afterwards, it took a little bit of time for me. I feel like just generally, I'm a super indecisive person. So deciding what you want to do with your life after college, took it took a longer time for me to realize what I wanted to do. I was deciding between, trying to find a job or going to grad school or eventually or doing a year of service. And I think what led me most to my decision to do a year of service was that when I looked back at my 4 years in school, the most memorable experiences and the most, I feel like, uh, the experiences that I had that I feel changed me the most were all related to service. So that's why I decided to do a year of service. And I honestly, I just Googled a bunch of service year programs. And Maria is also a huge selling point for me. I feel like I felt the most like love even through the phone from NBC. And this was even before I met any of my community members or any of the other volunteers. I just felt that, even through like how the alumni were, like raving about their experiences and how kind the staff all were. I feel like that's what pushed me towards doing NBC.
Yay. And we're so glad to have all of you in the Circle of Mercy as Mercy volunteers. Can you all talk a little bit more about what you do at your service site and what the mission of your service site is? Michaela, if you'll start on this one.
Sure. So the National Youth Service Center is Philadelphia's largest immigrant and refugee resettlement center. So we offer, case management with social workers. We have a legal team. We have a health team that helps people access medical care, including mental health care. And I'm a member of that team, but more specifically, I run the food access program. So we have a food pantry in the office that all of our clients are free to access once a week. So that's kind of my main focus. More recently, we've welcomed about 500 Afghan refugees to the community. So my year of service so far has really been about getting that community in particular food and access to other resources. So it's really been, I didn't really know that nobody really knew this was going to happen when I signed up for MBC. But it's been a really powerful experience for me. And, I think NSC aligns with the Mercy values of like compassionate service extremely well. So it was a very natural fit.
Great. Thanks, Michaela. Minji?
So St. Mary's is a free health care center for, it's actually exclusively for residents without insurance who live in Savannah. Not just Savannah, actually, just kind of the greater Chatham County area. So that's, it's just a free clinic. What I like most about St. Mary's, I think one of the reasons why I chose St. Mary's over, because there are a lot of healthcare placements, but what particularly drew me to St. Mary's was I felt that they had a more comprehensive view of, an individual's health. So there are obviously healthcare providers, there are nurse practitioners there who will, diagnose and treat, but there's also a social worker at the clinic. There's also a nutritionist at the clinic. There's a mental health professional there. So I feel like all these other aspects of, these people's lives. Most of our patients, are low income. Some of them are experiencing homelessness. And so obviously there's, a lot of aspects to daily life that impact your health. And I feel like St. Mary's really takes pride in looking after, every part of your wellness instead of, just taking, prescribing a medication and, having that kind of be the end all be all of it.
Thanks, Minji. Lauren?
Cristo Rey is it's a private Catholic high school on the southwest side of Detroit, but it's not your typical private Catholic high school. It is for students whose families have a certain level of income, like not like a super high rich level income. They're students who are like part of the urban areas of Detroit, and the majority of our student population is Latino, and we have a small Black population as well. So it's been super, super cool to become immersed in a culture that I'm not necessarily used to or didn't grow up in. And my primary role, it's been a very interesting year because this is Cristo Rey's first year back after a pandemic. So everybody's like back in the school for the first time in a couple years. And I originally was supposed to be half campus ministry, half assistant to the dean. And because I graduated college with a degree in religious studies, they've kind of just like let me take full control within campus ministry, which has been awesome. So that kind of revolves around a lot of planning retreats. Each grade level gets a retreat a year. So that's been a super cool way to connect with students. Now that it's Lent, we are hosting reconciliation services. We're having our first all school mass soon. I also am the staff advisor of the Environmental Justice Club. And so we have a lot of students who are just like extremely passionate about changing the way that the school functions in terms of like their products. And we have a garden around the school, and we do trash and whip it cleanups. And they're just like super, super involved in like everything. And as a high schooler, like I wish I was that involved in my community. And one of my other campus ministers, she teaches the junior theology classes, and she has just like welcomed me into her classroom and has allowed me to co-teach with her, which has just been an incredible experience to be able to like share my knowledge and my passion for social justice and moral theology with these students. But like I said with Mercy, how everybody was just so like warm and welcoming. Cristo Rey is just like the exact same way. All of the staff, like the first day I was there, I just felt so loved and so welcomed in the community. And these students also, I feel like I learned so much from them every day. Even though when I tell them that, they don't really believe me. But yeah, it's an incredibly special place to work.
Thanks, Lauren. And I see you're sporting the Cristo Rey shirt today. We love that. Can you all talk a little bit about community life? So Mercy volunteers, while they're serving, also live in community with other volunteers. And this is an intentional lifestyle to share your experience with one another. So if each of you can talk about what that has kind of looked like in your experience. Minji?
Well, first, there are a lot of ways that like living in community is different from, like just having roommates, which is kind of what it sounds like until you enter into community and you realize it's not just like having roommates. First of all, you can't pick who you're in community with, and the first time you meet each other is actually at orientation. So that's always, I feel like, you get to know each other really well, really quickly. And there's always like for in my experience, at least, there's been like a quick, like, kind of learning curve where, you become close very quickly because you have to learn to live with each other really quickly. Um, I feel like in um, generally, you don't have to be friends with your roommates. You can just kind of coexist, in a friendly way. But in community, I think of my community, as my family. You There are logistic parts of like why you have to be close. You share your stipends, you budget together, all these kinds of things that you do with your family that you might not necessarily have done with roommates in college or after college. But even more so, there is um, that passion for service that I feel like at the core of community. That's kind of what brings you together, and to be able to, share that part of everyday life. You go to work and you come back and you're able to, you know. Share that with your community members. You're able to find support in each other. That's, I feel like, something that's unique to community life, and not, it's. I think it's hard to find outside of community.
Thanks, Minji. Lauren?
I think one of the coolest things about living in community is that you, like Minji said, like you truly don't know who you're going to be living with. Like they're not people that you like have known for years and get to like, oh yeah, we're all gonna go to this city and we're all gonna live in this house together and it's gonna be great. You are put into a house with complete strangers who became your family within 5 days at orientation. And you get to learn so much about these people. For instance, in my community, there's 3 of us. And my community mates are from different places than I am. They share a different faith than I do. So that's been one of the most interesting things for me, is getting to know the faith that's different than mine. I think that's also a unique part about Mercy, is that you don't have to be Catholic. It's just a very spiritual, faithful experience, and you get to share all of those diverse perspectives with each other. So that's been it's kind of been challenging for me. Living in 3 is always challenging, but we found a way to make it work. We have our own little system that's kind of like worked since the beginning. And we all are just very cognizant of each other and the needs of each other. Our favorite thing is cooking breakfast. One afternoon, it was like 3:00 and we were going to go do something in the city, but none of us could decide what to do. So we just spent like 3 hours cooking breakfast in the kitchen. And we each have our own thing that we cook. I usually make the pancakes. Israel usually makes the grits and whatever else he decides he wants to make. He makes homemade cinnamon rolls, which sometimes is super cool. And Chippo makes fantastic scrambled eggs, and it's like our coined term, the Detroit breakfast. So yeah, like Minji said, it's very different than living with your roommates. But there's like that innate sense that those people that you live with, your community members, always have your back. And like at the root of all of it, you're all here for the same reason, and you understand that, and you get to learn all these new perspectives and ways of being and experiences. And there's something really special about that.
Thanks, Lauren. Now I want some breakfast. I want a Detroit breakfast. That sounds delicious. Michaela, how about you?
Yes, so community has been like my favorite part of my year of service so far, and I love my service site, so that's really saying something. But it's really been such a blessing. Like I think, you know, we've become very close. In fact, like we're living together next year as well. So though you don't have to be best friends, sometimes that happens. But you know, I think the biggest thing is that it it works the best when everyone wants to contribute to it and when everyone's like intentional about community. Like I would say, you know, if you want to kind of just do direct service on your own and you want a more individual kind of year of service, maybe MVC is not the program for you, because community is a huge part of it. And, you know, orientation, they really kind of prepare you for living in an intentional community, especially, you know, an intentional, simple lifestyle. So you do have to be collaborative with your community mates, you know, about what you're going to eat and how you're going to split up chores and, you know, that kind of thing. You can't just squirrel away into your room and kind of do your own thing necessarily. And that's great. Like it really makes everybody, you know, like Lauren and Minji said, feel like a family. And I think, you know, it helps that everyone who applies to MVC and becomes part of the Circle of Mercy they're all like-minded, you know, not the same, but social justice driven and compassionate and, you know, wanting to be a part of both, you know, a rather small community within MVC and then part of your larger community at your service site or in the city you live in. So I think MVC has just made me rethink what community can be, and it's been a huge blessing.
Yay, thanks, Michaela. Thinking about, so one of the things that Lauren kind of alluded to here is that there's this piece of sharing and spirituality in community. And so volunteers have community spirituality nights once a week. And then we also have retreats throughout the year. So we start off with orientation and retreat, and then there are 2 throughout the year. And then we close out the year with the transition retreat. So I would love to hear from you all if there's something that has really stuck with you from the experience of sharing spirituality, or like a specific spirituality night event that someone did that has stuck with you. Lauren?
I'll speak a little bit to both aspects within like my own community spirituality nights and then a little bit about the retreats. But one of the most memorable spirituality nights that we've had was actually like one of our first. And one of my community mates, their Sabbath is on Friday. They're Seventh-day Adventists, so their Sabbath runs from Friday night to Saturday night. And our spirituality night on Friday night was doing their Sabbath tradition together. And it was very, very cool, and it felt very sacred to be involved in something that wasn't necessarily my own. But they were vulnerable enough to like share that with me. And it was just very powerful, and I took a lot from it, and I felt that I understood them a lot better. But our spirituality nights involve a lot of meals. We usually make dinner, and then either during dinner or as soon as dinner is finishing up, we will begin our spirituality nights. But there's a lot of deep conversations and a lot of like deep conversations about life, and just being able to hear different perspectives on a lot of things and like hear how profound other people's thoughts are is just like super cool on a spiritual level. Retreat wise, I love retreats in general. Retreats have been one of my favorite things to do since college. A retreat I attended in college actually changed my life, which brought me here. But being able to be with other cities during your retreats is very, very fun. To share your community with like the other communities and have that bonding experience. But also the retreats are a wonderful time to just like, at least for me, take a step back. You get so wrapped up in everything that's going on at work, and like you just feel so busy all the time, and then you get to these retreats and you get to like relax and just like stop for 2 seconds and remember why you're there and why you're doing a year of service, and kind of just like recenter and reground yourself within that spiritual aspect within your community, within the program as a whole, and kind of lead you back to the sole purpose of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren. Michaela?
Yeah, so spirituality nights and retreats. I had never really done a retreat like in high school. In fact, like when I heard spirituality nights, I was like, oh my gosh, are we gonna have to like attend a mass together? Is that the only way to do it? Like I was kind of like nervous about it. And then I very quickly learned that that's not at all what it is. So spirituality night, I think, can take a lot of different forms. And that's something our community coordinator, Alex, who's been wonderful, she's kind of opened our eyes to a little bit. So one of my favorite spirituality nights was we went to the Philadelphia Museum of Art on the Friday night because on a Sunday because it's free, or it's like pay what you want. So volunteers always find the free opportunities in those cities. It'll come in handy. So we basically just spent the day together and like walked around and kind of wandered around and looked at these beautiful pieces of art, and then kind of sat together afterwards and just discussed. And I think that was a space where it all, was very powerful to each one of us individually. And we got time to kind of think and reflect individually and then come together and, just spend that physical time together and walk around Philadelphia and really be together. So that's been one of my favorite spirituality nights. Retreats have also been fantastic. They always seem to come like exactly at the right time, like exactly when you need to pause, or just kind of recenter a little bit, because community life is hard, especially like, with our placements and living simply. Like it does take a lot of intention, as we were talking about before. But I think retreat is just like a place to share with each other and just kind of sit with each other. And for me, it's just full of laughter. Like we just stay up and talk and get to hear from the experiences of our community coordinators who are also MBC alums, and, share meals together. And it's been one of my favorite parts of MBC. And I think it makes you feel closer with your community. And then with the other volunteers of your year. Personally, I think being in Philadelphia, the Northeast volunteers are the best. Like our retreats are the best. In New Jersey. I know everyone's shaking their head, but you get to connect with them and you get to connect with alums. It's just, and sometimes the sisters come too. So it's so fun.
Yeah, thanks, Michaela. Just to add some clarification too, the retreats at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year are done all together. All Mercy volunteers attend those. The mid-year retreats are done regionally. So that little bit of competitiveness is the different regions having all awesome and unique retreats. Michaela, Minji, sorry, how about you?
Well, to be honest, spirituality is something that my community struggled with in the beginning of the year, not just because we all have different faiths, but also because we come from different places in our lives in terms of, how, in terms of our own spiritualities. So, the extent to which you're comfortable with your own spirituality, and whether that's something you're confident in, or if that's something that you're still figuring out. So navigating spirituality nights is something that we're still working on, and we've found that at the core of spirituality nights really is vulnerability, which isn't always comfortable. So what's worked for us are spirituality nights that take into consideration all the different perspectives we have, and in order for us to decide what that is, we talk about it beforehand, what we want our spirituality nights to look like. And like Michaela and Lauren said, they can be, religious, but they don't have to be. One spirituality night that one of my community members led was like centered around art. So we all like painted with watercolors and like shared about it afterwards. So it can take many different forms. And in terms of the retreats, there's no communities are close to us. So our fall retreat was just our Savannah community. And we went to one of the sisters' beach houses. And that was actually really nice. I appreciated the break that retreats serve from, you get to step away from your service site and step away from like the pattern of the routine that you get into. I remember one of my favorite moments from our retreat was taking the four of us took a walk on the beach at night. Sounds super cliche now that I'm speaking it into existence, but we took a long walk on the beach, and we just talked and we listened to Taylor Swift and we looked at the stars, and it was very spiritual for us, I would say. And so yeah, that's something that I've come to realize, is that spirituality definitely can look like different things for different people.
Yeah, thank you, Minji. There are so many different ways to experience spirituality, and we absolutely welcome everybody of all or no faith, as long as you are interested in and willing to grow and share in spirituality. So let's think a little bit about simple living. This is intentionally making choices about your impact, not just financially, but also in your resources and your time and your energy. So wondering if you could share a little bit about how you and your community have lived simply this year. Michaela?
Yeah, so living simply was what drew me to MVC, but also was what I was most hesitant about MVC. So I was like, it just kind of made me nervous, because you do really have to be intentional with how you spend like your personal stipends, and how you allocate like your community resources. And for me in particular, my roommates can attest, I'm like the worst cook ever, like the least food interested. I'm terrible. In college, all of my money went straight to food. So for me, learning to, I guess, like cook more or be more reliant on my community members who fortunately love to cook. I think that has been like one way that has changed kind of my view about like what spending money really means. But most importantly, I think living a simple lifestyle, even though like I'm in the middle of a city, I think I feel a lot more connected like to the earth and to my surroundings. I spend a lot more time outside, walking places. You don't have money necessarily to go to like a new movie or to go out to eat or do things like that in your free time. So my free time this year has been spent like a lot of times walking around the city, or going for runs with my community, or just like finding a park and like reading a book. So I think at first it can be an adjustment. I think especially, coming out of a pandemic, quote unquote, like I don't really believe that, but coming out of a pandemic kind of, and things are supposedly opening up, like you want to be engaged in the world, but it definitely takes a little bit of adjustment. But I think ultimately, like it really changes the way you kind of view your life and view the community you live in.
Yeah, thank you, Michaela. Minji?
Yeah, so in terms of like living simply with, you know, your budget, that's something that was new to me. I'm sure it was new for all of my community members too, because you know, when you're living with other people in college, again with your roommates, you don't necessarily operate off of the same budget. So it took um, a little bit of adjustment, which is normal. Um, and we've actually gotten pretty good at budgeting. I think that's something that the Savannah community takes pride in. We have like our Excel system that really works well for us, and we've found that it helps to kind of establish not, you know, not like roles, but it kind of just happens naturally. So we have 2 boys and 2 girls in my community. The boys hate to go grocery shopping, and I really like going grocery shopping. So that's kind of, we've fallen into that. Another part of living simply, we've started to, this is at least my first time doing it, but composting and being like really intentional about recycling. And so the boys have kind of taken that and they take the compost and the recycling. So that's, I think in the beginning, it's harder for sure at the beginning because you're also still kind of getting to know each other. But I think once you fall into, you know, kind of a rhythm, it wasn't as hard as I was afraid that it was going to be, if that makes sense. It really it just feels natural now. And it, I feel like with, uh, in terms of time, similar to what Michaela said, I think that living simply, first of all, it makes it easier to understand the people that you work with. So living simply, I feel like makes it easier for me to, I understand where my patients are coming from more than I think I would if I weren't living in, you know, a simple lifestyle. And it it really does make you appreciate like um, the little things in life. And what helps is doing it together. You have your community, and you're not, you know, you're all kind of learning to do this together for the first time.
Thanks, Minji. Lauren?
The first like month or two, I was like, okay, I only get this amount of money to spend. I'm not gonna buy anything. I was like that person that was like, I can't do this, I can't buy this, I can't buy that. I can't do it. But then I like got more used to the concept of like, okay, no, you can buy things. It's like it's fine. Like you're still getting money, just not a lot. But yeah, it takes a while to like get used to that, to like get into that rhythm of what's necessary and what's not. Um, like in college, I would go and buy coffee like almost every day, but like that's not feasible now. So what I learned to do is I make a pot of coffee and put it in the fridge and make my own like iced coffee every morning for work. And I almost appreciate that more. It's just like those little things that, like Minji was saying, like the little things matter a lot. Um, being or living simply is very freeing. Um, it feels nice to not like have money or possessions like weighing you down. I've found that a lot of my time is like spent doing other things. Like I love going out and exploring the city, going on walks, reading, finding parks to hang my hammock in and read. I just like don't really have a huge desire to be on my computer or I mean in the winter is a little bit more difficult being in Michigan. It's cold, but I don't know, there's just like you are just like awoken to, I don't think that's a word, to so many other opportunities. And like when you're given a chance to like go out to eat or like go do something, it just feels like a huge luxury. And it's honestly like super cool to be like, oh my God, I'm going to a restaurant to eat. I don't even know what to do. But it's just like you enjoy life so much more, and you enjoy the simple things so much more in simple living. And once you like get into a rhythm of everything, it's honestly, I wouldn't call it easy, but you learn how to do it, and you find your systems that work and you find your systems that don't, and you learn how to make compromises. Sometimes you get to spoil yourself, and other times you're like, no, I really don't need to go to Target right now.
Thanks, Lauren. So we have a question from our audience about what volunteers do after their year of service. Wondering about going to grad school or medical school, continuing in your studies. So I'll kind of answer generally, and then if one of you wants to jump in, that's great too. So our volunteers do about half each year end up going to graduate school or medical school to continue their studies. We do have graduate school partners that offer discounts on tuition for Mercy alumni, which is a great opportunity. So do any of you want to jump in with your plans for next year?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to just like jump the gun, but I am super excited because I don't know, I feel like there's so many opportunities out there post year service. There's more years of service. There's grad school, there's jobs, there's literally whatever you want to do, I guess. It's your life. But I was in the process of applying for additional years of service and grad school. I got accepted into 2 grad schools, and the more I kind of like got into that process of what is the right decision, I was given so many like opportunities to discern from, and having this year like gives you so many opportunities. Like it's a beautiful thing to have that many like good decisions that you can choose from. But I think that I'm almost at the official final decision of attending Boston College in the fall. That's one of the schools that has wonderful opportunities through Mercy. 75% of my tuition is being taken care of because I'm completing a year of service, and I will be earning my master's in theological studies. And I'm very excited. I love learning. Learning is like my favorite thing. So, and I never would have like imagined that I would have an opportunity to go to a school like Boston College, live on the East Coast after living in the Midwest my entire life. But because of this year, I like have stepped out of my shell so much, and I like am eternally grateful for the beautiful opportunities that this year has given me. I may change my mind next week, who knows? But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yay, thanks for sharing, Lauren. And we're excited for you. Does anyone else want to add in plans for next year?
I can talk a little bit because I actually found I like my year of service has actually helped me to, discern what I wanted to do. I wasn't, entirely sure coming into the year of service. I was originally at pre-med for pretty much all of college. And then right after I graduated, which is the perfect time to question whether you're going to do something that you plan to do for 4 years, I was starting to, I don't know if that was something that I still wanted for myself. So in terms of what I wanted to do after my year of service, I was in a very confused place coming into to my year at MVC. And I think this year has done so much for me and in terms of giving me like the time and the space to really think about it. Like I said, I'm so indecisive. And I think that definitely having when you're doing your year of service, your only responsibility is to go to your service site and do your work and then come back home, and your housing is taken care of, transportation is taken care of, all like rent and utilities, that's not an issue for you. So do like having a year where the only thing you really have to do is something that you really enjoy, frees up a lot of time and space when you're not that you don't have to spend like thinking about like tests or assignments or club meetings or all of these other things that take up a lot of your brain space, even when you're supposed to be having like free time. There's not such thing as free time in college. So having like that, I feel like calmness of the year has helped me decide what I wanted to do. I'm applying to grad school right now, actually. I'm applying to physician assistant programs. And so that's my plan for the near future. I know some of my roommates are going to graduate school too, and they've actually completed like the application process while they were here and gotten in while they were here, similar to Lauren. So that's definitely a possibility if that's something that you're interested in. If you're a pre-medical if you're on the pre-med track, I know the volunteer at my service site before me applied to medical school while she was here and was, hearing back while she was here too. So it's all possible. But if you're in a place where you're unsure, a year like this can be really helpful for you.
Yeah, thanks, Minji. Some of the other routes that volunteers take after their service too could be a second year of service. Other volunteers join the workforce in some way in full-time positions. Some even at their service sites will be offered positions to stay on full-time. Yeah, so there are many different routes to go, and we're happy to support you as you kind of discern that next route while you're serving. All right, I have one final question for our volunteers. For the people who are watching who are considering a year of service, but may be concerned about the financial aspects, maybe the uncertainty of the pandemic, or a year of service really being out of like the societal norm of what to do when you maybe graduate college. What are some pieces of advice that you would give to them in their experience? Michaela, if you want to jump in on this one.
Sure. I think these are all concerns I had when I first discerned that I wanted to do MVC. I think just coming at it similar to community life, like coming into your year of service, being as intentional as possible, particularly with financials, but also just how you what it really means to be a member of like the wider community. So with regard to COVID, I think there's just so much uncertainty like in the world, but I think if you can lean on your community and you can really be intentional about living simply and doing things like making a budget and just kind of falling into those routines that Minji and Lauren talked about, like I think I actually feel like I'm kind of wading through the uncertainty of the world right now a lot better than I would have if I had gone right to law school or grad school or something. So I think your MVC community can be a really supportive thing for you, in all this period of COVID or financial uncertainty. I think it can only be a good thing.
Thanks, Michaela. Minji?
I'd say, I mean, yeah, like Michaela was saying, these are all things that, I was also, concerned about thinking about doing a year of service. None of my friends were doing a year of service. None of my friends were even considering it actually. And like for myself personally, I was worried about the finances. Like, could I, physically afford to lose a year of employment doing a year of service? And kind of through all that, what helped me make my decision was like asking myself what's going to matter to you, not tomorrow but in a couple of years. What is this year going to give you if you devoted it to living in community and serving an unfamiliar community in an unfamiliar place versus if you spent it working or went straight to school or whatever other opportunities you're considering. And I think like for myself, I think that this is like right after graduating college. I mean, and I know most of our volunteers fall in that cohort, but they're also, volunteers from all walks of life. But I thought to myself, like in the trajectory of my own life, when else am I going to, do this year of service, which I knew I really wanted to do, but I was just concerned about, is this the right time for it? And so all of those questions helped, kind of guide me to whether I wanted to do it or not. And I did want to do it.
Thanks, Minji. Lauren?
Yeah, in college, like money is a huge issue with loans and all of that great stuff. College really isn't a cheap option, and going straight to a year of service can sound extremely daunting financially, but at least the federal government is like super, super good with like deferring your loans. I had a little bit of issue with one of my private loan lenders, but they in the end were accommodating. Andrea knows we had quite a process through all of it, but it's just a matter of like talking to people. I know talking to people is also very difficult, but just like reaching out and seeing what your options are, seeing what's out there. It's very, very doable, in my opinion. I feel like I had a lot to say and now I don't remember any of it. But yeah, it's also very like against societal norms. A lot of people were like, wait, why are you doing this? Whenever my students at Crystal Ray find out that I'm a volunteer, they're like, Miss, why are you here then? And that's just been like a super like a interesting question for myself to think about too. Like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? And I've come to the conclusion that I will not fully know why I'm here until I'm done. That this whole year I have learned more about myself than I have learned in like my entire lifetime. And it's been extremely difficult. I will not lie. Like this year is a lot, but it's so rewarding at the same time because you meet so many incredible human beings. You have so many incredible experiences. And you are given so many like opportunities to do so many cool things that you may not see in other places. Yeah, it's really hard for me to talk about things that have such a huge impact on me, but my speechlessness speaks many words, in my opinion.
Of course. Thank you, Lauren. And Minji and Michaela, thank you all for your vulnerability and sharing your stories tonight of your experiences as volunteers and on to the next journey too. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We are currently accepting applications for the 2020 service year. and we'll continue to on a rolling basis. Our general application deadline is April 6th. If you happen to miss that, no worries. We continue to accept until the final application deadline of June 20th. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at mercyvolunteers.org or chat us here on YouTube. Thanks so much, everybody.